This program is part of the Cosmic Potato Podcast Network. For more shows like this, visit our website at cosmicpotatonetwork.com.
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching television. I need all the image, I need all the sound. I know the info right into my mind.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trial by Pilot. This is the show where we judge an entire series of television and the work of hundreds on one episode. I'm Bill Lynch.
I'm Elizabeth Lynch.
And we're doing a lightning round.
Yeah.
Our first ever.
Yeah, I kind of like this idea.
Yeah, I love it. Who thought of this?
It doesn't matter.
You know, it just goes to show you, after 2 years of this podcast, we're still just coming up with fresh ideas and content constantly. Ah, man.
You got to keep it fresh.
Wow.
For the listeners. Give them what they want.
So, yeah, I don't even know. I guess we had just watched a couple shows, and there's just so much shit constantly on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of other channels, but Netflix is constantly producing new stuff.
Yeah.
We're like, let's just do a bunch of them at once.
Right.
Most of the shows we're going to talk about today are shorter pilots that didn't really warrant their own episode of Trial by Pilot. We probably could have done one on I'm Not Okay With This.
Yeah. I think we were hopeful that we could do one on Brews Brothers. And then we watched it and we were like,
yeah,
we can't fill an
We
episode
maybe could have
of
done
this.
one, but it's hard enough for like half an hour sitcoms on network TV to like have a lot to talk about. So like some of these shows are very, very short.
Right.
I Am Not Okay With This, which maybe we'll start talking about that one. The first episode was like 19 minutes.
Yeah.
It was so short. So we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about Brews Brothers, a sitcom on Netflix. We're going to talk about Midnight Gospel, an animated series on Netflix. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about The Last Dance, which is a ESPN/Netflix documentary about the 90s Bulls.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls.
Which is, I mean, right up my alley.
You're loving it.
I actually am loving it. I do love it.
So let's start with I'm Not Okay With This. This is actually also the first episode of our podcast where I don't have a big ass thing of notes in front of me.
Yeah, we literally just watched it.
Yeah.
I had watched it once before because my brother recommended it to me. And one night you were doing something, I don't know, doing virtual board gaming. And
That sounds right.
yeah, that sounds all right. So I watched it on my own and I was like, this could be good for the podcast. So I'm going to like stop watching it. So I just watched it again with you.
Yeah, and this stars, do you remember her name? Mm-mm. It is Sophia Lillis.
Okay, what else is she in?
So
She's very familiar looking to me. And I know she's not the girl who played Annie in the original Annie film.
okay,
Although she does.
that's true.
I can't remember her name.
A real leap there by Elizabeth. So she was the younger version of Amy Adams' character in Sharp Objects.
Oh, that's why I know her.
That's why I know her too, but she's also been like a leading actress in the It remake.
Okay, I didn't see
the
that.
horror movies, and in Gretel and Hansel, which was a horror movie that came out last year.
I didn't see that either.
That actually, I just watched the Red Letter Media, a review of something else, but they talked a lot about Gretel and Hansel, and they really liked it. They said, you know, the script was okay, but the visuals were fantastic and the acting was really good.
Yeah.
And she's like the lead in that. She's
okay.
she's Gretel. So yeah, I had heard about I Am Not Okay With This when I guess when Netflix started advertising for it a couple months back. Mm-hmm. But then since it started, I haven't heard a ton of buzz around it. I know a few people that have watched it, but I haven't heard a lot. I liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
Like I said, it was super short, but it's based around this teenage girl who is, I don't know if they say 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
Her father committed suicide a year ago after she moved to this new town in Pennsylvania, and she's narrating the whole thing, which I usually don't like, but didn't bother me in this.
I liked it in this.
Yeah.
I liked it because I think I also liked her tone. Like, it really helped set the tone.
Yes.
And her delivery, like, wasn't... I don't know. It just felt like she was still so true to character.
Yeah.
In it. while she was narrating.
Yeah,
it.
maybe that's why. Maybe I just don't see a lot of stuff done well.
Yeah.
Yeah, true to character, I think is good. Because, the narration felt exactly how she would be talking to like herself or her diary. It starts off with the first line of narration is like, "Dear diary,
Go fuck yourself.
go fuck yourself." That's right. I knew it had the word "fuck" in it.
Yeah, like her guidance counselor encouraged her to keep a diary. And basically, I think that's what we're getting is her diary entries.
Right.
Then, like, the scenes
Right.
surrounding that.
And so she has a best friend who is like popular and athletic, which she is not. But
She's clearly in love with her.
right. But she moved to the town the same time she did. What's her character's name? Sydney.
Yeah.
Sid, everyone calls
Yeah.
her, right? So they became good friends anyway. And in the pilot episode, Sid finds out that her best friend has a crush on and is like now dating or going to homecoming with like the jock from her class who's a total douchebag.
Right, yeah.
Like super stereotypical douchebag. He makes some joke in like sex ed class, which the sex ed scene, there's just like 9 diagrams on the board of like a dick. And
Like a flaccid penis.
yeah, and the science teacher is like going over in detail how you get an erection and keep it. Like no high school like sophomore or junior sex ed class is going into that much detail.
I don't know. Maybe they are.
I mean, it's been a long time since I had sex ed, but it seemed like it was kind of put there for somewhat comedic
Are
purposes.
you going to edit that out? So you edit out the word ed. So it sounds like it's been a long time since I've had sex.
Well, I am now. No, this is a comedy podcast, and that's a little bit too real.
Oh, come on.
All right. Casey's not here to reel us in. So as the 3 of them are sitting in this diner and she's like finding out all this, that like her best friend and probable crush
Yeah.
is going to prom with this douchebag, she's just like, we're getting the narration of like how much she hates this situation and like, would
It's
you
getting
just,
much more like intense.
yeah. And she says something about like, just like, shut up. I just want to smash your face in. And suddenly the guy gets a nosebleed
Yeah.
right away. And then
And he's like not cool about it at all.
Yeah.
He's like, ooh.
give me a minute. And what was the second thing that happened?
She was like picking these zits on her thighs
Oh, yeah.
in the bathroom. And the tub was dripping and it was like bothering her. She's trying to like concentrate on this. And then she goes, gosh, just stop. And it just like stopped dripping.
Yeah. And we have a scene with her and her little brother. The mom is a waitress. So her and the little brother are probably home alone a lot at night.
Yeah.
And so, she's watching him. They go out and get hot dogs at
Convenience store.
And he's talking about like how some kid was bullying somebody else in his class and he thinks he's going to get bullied next. And he shows her a drawing of like some superhero suit that he's going to like make and wear.
Yeah.
And it's got like spikes on the fists and the spikes are like all bloody. It's like implying like he wants to like kill this kid.
Yeah.
But she like just thinks it's really cool.
I mean, I got the impression that he just like had like a big like, fantasy, like a big imagination.
Yeah.
Was really good at drawing clearly. And liked superheroes.
Yeah. There was just like very graphic, bloody
Yeah.
spikes coming off of the gloves of the
Yeah.
suit. And so the mom gets home that night and she's like drinking wine on the couch while they're both watching TV. And Sid like finally opens up a tiny, tiny bit after a
Right.
year. Like, oh yeah, I went to the guidance counselor. She said I need an outlet. She's like, an outlet for what?
It's like,
she's like,
what do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, and it's like, they never talk about the dad committing suicide. Like they haven't
Yeah.
spoken about it one time. And so she finally starts to open up a little bit and she's like, I just feel like everyone I love doesn't love me back. And the mom says, well, maybe you shouldn't aim so high.
Yeah. Not even looking at like such a terrible thing to say.
Yeah. I was trying to think of it like, oh, maybe she thought that she was talking about like crushes.
She probably did.
But regardless, what a bitchy thing to
it's
say.
a shitty thing to say. And like I think she was talking about that, and she was also talking about her dad and her mom. Like
Right. And so she goes upstairs and, you know, we get some narration again. And then it ends with some like plaster on the wall behind her, just like snapping and breaking.
Yeah.
So she has some supernatural abilities.
Yeah.
Psychokinesis or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, there's also her neighbor, Stanley,
Oh, yeah.
from down the street, who's
Like
just
a weird guy.
Just like a weird dude. Probably has like a little crush on Sid.
Yeah.
He calls her up and like they don't even talk. They just like listen to some music that he wanted her to listen to. The soundtrack was really good
Yeah, it was.
for the pilot. Good soundtrack. He was cool. He was good. Yeah. So 19 minutes. There's not much else to say about the plot.
Right.
But it was good. It was, you know, they like dipped your toe into like this like supernatural stuff, which I'm sure will like become a bigger thing
Right.
in the next episode. How many episodes have you watched?
You know, now that we started, maybe I've watched 2, but it was a while ago. It was like a few weeks ago, and I didn't go back to it because I thought I didn't want to get too into it if we were going to do it for this.
Yeah.
So I don't remember. But there's one scene that I, like, as we were just talking, I was like, wait, I must have watched the second episode because I don't remember it. So, but I don't know if I finished it or not.
So I'm sure that will play a bigger part, but it was, even with the supernatural stuff, it just like felt, I don't know, it felt nice. Like it felt like grounded in
Yeah.
reality, like a
Yes.
real world. All the characters were like good characters. Like the guy Stanley was like this weird dude,
Yeah.
but felt real.
I love
You
her
know,
and her little brother.
Yeah. You know, Sid felt like an angsty teen, like maybe like played up a little bit, but felt real.
Yeah.
You know, like popping the pimples on her thighs and everything,
Yeah.
and all her narration. I mean, the mom was like a little over the top, like distant, bitchy mom, but I'm sure that's a real thing too.
Yeah, I mean, her husband killed herself in her basement, and they're still living there, and she
Yeah.
waitresses for a living, which is not an easy job, and she has 2 kids. So yeah, that's probably accurate, you know, like.
So yeah, I would recommend checking it out. I don't know how many episodes it is.
I don't remember.
It's probably 8 or 10, but I think they're all super short. I think they're
Yeah.
all like 20-minute episodes.
Yeah,
So it's probably something easy to binge if you end up liking the first episode or 2.
yeah.
Do you think it'll get a second season?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what they were going for with it. I
Yeah.
think based off the pilot, I would say yes.
That's our show.
Yeah, I would say yes, because I thought it was really good, and I'm certainly going to watch it again.
Yeah. If it wasn't intended to be a mini series, which I don't think it was, then I'll say yes as well. I think that this actress, Sophia Lillis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is like a big enough face now
Yeah,
where like if you have her on a show, it'll probably get
yeah,
picked up
she's
again?
really good.
She was really good, yeah.
How old is she? Do you know?
I can find out very
I mean, she plays young
easily.
very well. I wonder how old she
She's
really
18.
is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's good.
She's 5 feet tall.
She probably did play Annie at some point in her life.
I'm sure, yeah. All right, so let's move on to, what do you want to talk about? Midnight Gospel or Brews Brothers?
You pick.
Well, let's talk about Brews Brothers.
All right.
All right, why did we watch this crap?
Well, we watched it because I have a big crush on Mike Tassel.
Castle.
Oh, sorry, Mike Castle.
His Instagram name is Bike Tassel.
His Instagram name is Bike Tassel. He's married to Lauren Lapkus, and I think that's the only reason I like know who he is, because I haven't ever seen him in anything. But I really like them together, and like, so I follow both of them, and I think they talk really nicely about each other, and I think they're both really funny and like endearing, and I just kind of have a crush on him and her and whatever. So I was like so excited that he had a project that I was going to get to see him act, and I really wanted to see that, you know, and it was about beer, and I thought, oh, this is perfect. I have a crush on him, and it's about beer. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think I had heard of this before, like Lauren or Mike even mentioned it, because
Oh,
I saw
really?
that it was about a sitcom about a brewery.
Yeah. A brewer?
A brewery. And And I follow Lauren Lapkus too. I don't know much about her husband or follow him, but I think Lauren's funny. I listen to a lot of podcasts with her on it. But man, this show was not funny.
No.
At all.
It really was not.
The writing was so bad. The acting was like fine. It was hard to tell because none of the jokes were funny.
Yeah, everything just felt so stilted to me.
Yeah.
And like set up, and I don't know. It had a vibe of like, I'm trying to compare it to a show. It seems like kind of low budget.
Yeah.
In a way,
sure.
Right? And I don't mean that like in a bad way, but like
Yeah.
just comparing it to shows like The League. It had a similar feel to The League, and
Yes.
that guy from The League was in it, so I thought, oh, maybe they're connected in some way.
They are.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember exactly now, but like the creators of The League created this. Like
Okay.
someone involved behind the scenes of The League was behind the scenes of this show. So they are somehow connected.
Okay.
And that's what I was going to say is this show feels like The League's later seasons, or like if The League was still running. This felt like
Yes.
like the comedy that
Yeah.
would be in The League season 15.
Right.
You
Where
know?
it's like, just stop now.
Right, exactly.
You
yeah.
don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, because I don't know if I watched all of The League, but I watched a bunch of seasons of it. Like
I watched 2 or 3, and
I watched at
by
least that many,
point, I was
probably
like,
more.
Okay.
yeah,
You know.
And I mean, The League had some great characters.
Right.
Great characters. I mean, fucking Nick Kroll was in it. J.C. Mantzoukas was in it. Mm-hmm. It also had some characters that were really never that funny, but were carried by all of the really funny people
Yeah.
around them. And some funny writing. But then as the seasons progressed, the writing got a little bit more stale and more repetitive. And by
And
the
like
end,
some stuff just over the top, like storylines were just so stupid.
Yeah. And so this feels like that descent just kept going, and now this is where they're at
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
in terms of writing. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There were like maybe a couple things. I remember something from one of the previews where Mike is wearing a hat or something, or a vest. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, he says something. And one of the women, the bartender, is like, oh, are you doing that to try to look more like Woody from Toy Story? There was like some like little joke in one of the
Yeah.
previews. I was like, all right, that's funny.
They made fun of his like dress a few times. I think they like called him because he dresses like a hipster who's trying way too hard, and like,
Yeah.
what did they call him? Shit, I can't remember. It's some show. I think you watched it.
I don't know.
I want to say like not Westworld, maybe Westworld,
Oh, maybe. I don't remember though.
maybe. I don't know. He looked like a newsie, like.
There was.
Well, okay, let's just get into the plot here. Like the
Oh my God.
the main storyline
Right,
here
right.
is they both have to like. So
Well, we don't even know who they are.
okay, there's this one guy who's a brewer. Okay, he has a brewery. It doesn't do great. He has a brother who comes back, and they are rivals basically. They had a huge falling out over brewing beer when they were younger, and the one brother, who's played by Mike Castle, moved away to like Portland, like to be a hipster, a beer snob.
Right.
And he comes back and tries to like run this brewery with his brother, basically help save the brewery because it's not doing that well.
Yeah.
So then they have this beer distributor coming in, and they really want to impress him, so they compete and brew a beer. They each brew a beer. The one he chooses to distribute happens to have been pissed in by the other brother. Right. So now they have to recreate the beer that he chooses by pissing in this beer. It's so stupid.
This is the entire premise of the pilot. It's all
Yes.
about piss.
It's
It's
like,
all about pissing into beer.
and I just like didn't like, I didn't like, you're not supposed to like the character of, Mike Castle's character,
Right.
but I didn't like it in a way that like wasn't good.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, you can. There's a lot of characters on television now that you're not supposed to like, but are good.
Right.
This was not good.
This wasn't good.
He wasn't the anti-hero of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we
It was
actually
just dumb. There's a lot going on, and they're introducing all these characters that are like, they're trying to see what's going to stick, like what's going to be funny, but like none
Right.
of them are funny.
Like they have a food truck pull up to the brewery every day, and the couple that works in the food truck are like constantly naked and having sex in the food truck and
yeah.
like farting on the food and stuff. Like
There's like a toilet in the thing. It's like, you're not Jason Mantzoukas.
right. Yes.
So what are you doing? Just get out of here.
Yeah, and we actually ended up watching a second episode because again, it was a short one. You were excited to watch this
Wait,
one.
we did?
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Right after the first.
Okay.
And it didn't get any better. It was
No.
after the second one. I was like, okay, this show's bad. So bummer.
Yeah, I
A
was
show
bummed about that.
with your crush, a show about a brewery, and it just didn't do it.
Sounds good on paper.
I did see someone post in one of my beer groups on Facebook, like criticizing something they said about the Belgian beer jokes that they were making were like completely inaccurate. Like, I know.
Who cares? I mean,
I don't
like,
fucking care about that if the show's funny. But it wasn't funny either.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, who cares? But like that also just kind of goes to show that like little to no effort was put into this script
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
Like they're like, oh, let's make this show about like a cool brewer, like a down to earth brewer, and then like a super hipster beer snob, and like let's just make that a show.
Yeah.
And then they did, but like none of them know anything about any of it.
Right.
So
Now I'm remembering there was one scene where the one brother has like a thing of hops out, and the other brother, Mike Castle's character, picks up and like starts to sniff it, and he's like, "Oh, Cascade," or whatever he says, and the other guy's like, "Actually, it's Columbus." He was like, "I'm pretty sure it's Cascade." I was like, "All right, that's really kind of funny." All right, so I don't recommend it. I don't
No.
think it'll get a second season.
no.
Midnight Gospel.
Fucking journey this show was.
So, this is an animated series that is created by the same guy. His name is Pendleton Ward, who created Adventure Time, which is on, I believe, Cartoon Network. It's an incredibly popular show. It's been running for a long time.
It's still on?
I think
I
so.
think we watched that in college or something. That was probably the last time I ever watched it. Who's in Adventure Time? Like, who are the characters? Is that the one with like the cup? Am I thinking of the right?
Finn and Jake. He's like a kid with like a weird white hat, and Jake the dog, and Princess Bubblegum, and
I don't think I ever watched it. I'm thinking of something else.
I mean, it's a kids show. I watched a bunch of it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I didn't watch it religiously or anything, but I have watched a bunch of it, a couple seasons probably, and it was good. And so this is that same guy doing like an adult show, and it's like a fucking weird acid trip.
Yes, it's very trippy, which I think was intentional.
Oh, totally. I think everything we say about the show is intentional. Like whether you liked it or didn't like it,
Right.
I think
Yes.
whatever you have to say about it was intentional. Like I think they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I think he knew what his vision was for the show.
I have to say that, like, when we sat down to watch it, I was kind of in a bad mood, and you were just like, oh, we're going to sit, like, I thought we were going to sit down and watch a show that we watch, and then you just, like, put this cartoon on, and I was like, what the fuck? All right, cool. He didn't even ask me what I wanted to watch. Now we're watching this dumbass cartoon, and so I'm sitting there, like, sort of paying attention, like, pissed off about it, and Bill's like, looks at me, he's like, are you paying attention? This is for the podcast. I'm like, what? It is? Like, I had no idea. I didn't even know what it was called. So then I started taking notes. So I was kind of like, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. So I like, knew nothing about the show going into it. So it took me a while to like get settled into even watching it, where I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this?
Well, I did that because we had just talked about like how we were just going to watch a bunch of shit Netflix
Yeah.
shows to do a lightning round. But with that said, I knew it was for the podcast, and I felt the same way. Like it took me a while. Like the first half of the episode, I was like in a weird like fucking fugue state. I was like not sure if I was supposed to be like watching this insane stuff on the screen or if I was supposed to be listening to the dialogue.
Yeah.
Because they're so disparate, and
Yes.
that was intentional too.
Right, but I didn't even realize that at first. I was like, wait, who's this character? So it took me a while. Like, so I wrote down, these are my notes. I don't like this animation because I didn't really like this animation. It felt weird to me to watch, which is why I think it's probably something you're supposed to watch while you're high, or
It probably helps.
yeah. And then I said, do they just have run-on conversations about nothing, and then the animation is done around it? And I said, this guy's in a simulator? I don't even know what that was about. I said, is this a therapy session? So it's basically like a zombie apocalypse going on while they're having a therapy session.
Well,
But then I realized it was like an interview.
yeah.
It sounded like it was like a podcast interview.
Yes. So the premise of the show, which maybe you missed at the very beginning, this cartoon guy who's like all pink is traveling to all of these different worlds through this simulator that looks like a giant vagina, and he sticks his head into the simulator, and then he like travels to all these worlds that are dying, and he interviews someone on that world for his podcast called Midnight Gospel.
Okay.
And so it's really strange, though, when you actually do start to listen, because I think the first episode is with Drew Pinsky.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about, legalizing marijuana and acid trips and all this stuff in like a very like down to earth, for the most part, as down to earth as that could be, conversation, while this fucking weird animation is going on.
Yeah.
Drew Pinsky's voice, he's voicing the president of this world, who is also just like
A baby?
a baby who is like gun-toting and like shooting all these zombies as they're like
Yeah.
moving around the White House.
As he's just like, I mean, picture like Dr. Drew. I mean, we've all seen Dr. Drew on something. And like the way he talks, picture that while he's just like this like little animated baby. And I was like watching it, I was like, wait, I also didn't know that it was going to be like different people each time. I'm like, Dr. Drew agreed to do this? Like, he's acting in that? Like, I didn't get it at first. It took me a long time to really understand what was going on.
It's so weird though, because like 95% of the dialogue is like an interview between these two people, and it sounds like they had an interview in real life and then just drew some weird shit.
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened.
But the other 5% of the dialogue is like scripted for the animation.
I think they went back in.
Maybe.
I think they went back in and were
Maybe.
like, let's like pepper these like actual things so you know like what's going on.
Yeah, maybe that
Like
makes sense.
to like sort of tie it together. But I think that it was just a conversation. They're like, let's have him fucking be a baby because that'll be funny. I mean, the thing that actually like ingratiated me to the show a little bit was when Dr. Drew as a little baby was like, they're sitting around a campfire and he's like, "Ooh, I'm cold," and like the guy was like, "Oh, come here," and like he and Dr. Drew as a baby are spooning next to the fire while they're still having this conversation, and that like made me chuckle. Like, I thought that was like kind of funny, and there were a couple things that I found funny, but mostly it was like not my thing. I didn't like any of the animation. Like, I wouldn't watch an animated zombie apocalypse show.
Yeah.
So I was like, eh.
Well, so I watched one more episode of this.
Okay.
Since we watched it. And so obviously it's not all about the zombie apocalypse. Every world they go to is like a different thing happening, and the world like blows up at the end. Yeah, the animation is, I don't even know what style. I mean, it's like psychedelic.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like in the second episode, also this guy who's traveling to all these worlds through the simulator takes on a different form every time. And so in the second episode, he's like this pink guy with a chicken head. And when he drops into this world, he drops onto these giant like dog monsters, but they have giant antlers. And so he like gets impaled on the two antlers. And so the person he interviews is the dog monster creature thing. And he's like on the antlers the entire time, interviewing them as they're being like transported to this city to go to slaughter. It's clowns. It's a clown city that's just like slaughtering the dogs. And the entire time they're talking about death and acceptance. And I don't think it's a bad show. I think it's...
No, I don't think it's a bad show
I
either.
think both the premise and the execution are really interesting. I don't necessarily know if it's my thing. I'm just like not that deep of a person that I want to hear or think about some of the topics that they probably discuss. Especially with
You're not comfortable with your emotions.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. But like I had to make a decision while I was watching the second episode because after watching the first one, I did think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I made like a conscious decision, like whether or not I was going to be watching it or listening to it. And so I tried to listen to it more.
Okay.
But then I felt like I was missing part of the show.
Sure, because then you're just essentially listening to a podcast.
Right. Because I was watching the animation, but it's actually really strange when they're so disparate because your brain just like divides the two.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm watching it, but I'm not really taking it in and I'm just listening. It's strange.
Yeah. I have to say, like, one of the things that I think I didn't like about it or maybe made me uncomfortable was like hearing two people drone on and navel gaze while the apocalypse is going on. Just like magnifies how annoying we all are. I was just like, there's a fucking apocalypse going on and you guys are talking about like I don't know. There was just so much like, well, I do this and overthinking and analyzing and
Yeah.
I was like, those two things, it made me uncomfortable. I was like, God, I hope I don't sound like this when I'm talking to people about shit. You know, like how important, like trying to sound so important or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like made me a little uncomfortable.
But-
would you, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say in the second episode, he's talking to an author, I believe. And at some point she references her husband, who I guess was sitting in on the interview or they were all together. And so he just like jumps in with like one little thing and then they animate him into the show.
Right.
Like he's like another dog creature now.
Yeah.
It's really weird. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, would you compare the and this is like off of memory, would you like compare the animation to like Peter Max a little bit?
I don't know. I mean, I would just compare it to Adventure Time, but if you don't know what that
Yeah, I
animation
don't know
style
that
is.
really.
I mean, it's
Not that I don't like Peter Max. It's just that like that seemed to be like maybe it was like inspired by that.
Maybe,
Like, just
maybe.
like the colors and
Yeah.
some of the forms and stuff.
yeah. I mean, like
But it wasn't enjoyable for me to watch that. The way like I like to watch Big Mouth or something, where it's just like more.
well, you don't watch that. You don't watch that for like the art of the animation, you know?
No, but like it's at least like my brain can process it.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know if I'll watch anymore. I'm fine if I don't, but I think it's an intriguing concept for a show, and
Yeah.
there's probably some interesting conversations. Maybe I would look up like who does he interview in the future episodes,
Yeah.
and like pick something that I think I would be interested in. You
Yeah.
know, because doing drugs doesn't really interest me to talk about that, and then like to talk about death,
Yeah.
I'm not really comfortable
Right.
with just personally. So maybe if I saw that they were talking about something else that intrigued me, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe after talking about this with you now, it made me think like maybe I would give another episode a chance just to see what the different episodes are.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not something I would seek out. It's just like not my personal taste, and it was a little bit weird.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I don't mind conversations like that, like listening to it like a podcast.
Yeah.
I like kind of like a long form interview podcast. It's like a lot of what I listen to.
Right.
So, but I don't know.
But you don't need to watch strange animation about some psychedelic world ending.
Yeah. It's just like, what is this extra stuff?
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, I mean, if you know what this is and you're interested in watching it, you probably already know. If you don't, then you're probably not fucking strange enough to want to watch this, because it's pretty weird.
Yeah. I mean, it is on Netflix though, so it's not like you're like that interesting if you watch it. Like it's available to everybody.
No, I didn't
It's
mean
not like
that.
this like underground thing.
No, I didn't mean that.
Oh.
I'm just saying, like, if you haven't heard of it, or you like don't watch it, or you're like, oh, I don't like cartoons, like, you're not gonna like this.
Right.
'Cause
Did you
it's-
say that like Susan?
Yeah.
Doesn't like cartoons. I don't like cartoons.
Then you're not going to like Midnight Gospel.
Yeah, no, I thought of Susan while we watched this. I was like, oh my God, Susan would hate this.
But it's one of the more unique shows we've seen recently.
It just reminded me of something that would be like on like just something about it reminded me of college, like being up super late and like watching like whatever they play at 2:00 in the morning on Cartoon Network.
Oh,
Where you're just kind of like,
sure.
you're like kind of like drunk and you're eating like Tostitos and you're like, what the fuck? I guess I'll go to bed. Like,
you could afford Tostitos in college? Jeez.
oh yeah.
All right. So the last show we're going to talk about, probably briefly, is The Last Dance, which is a sports documentary series about the Chicago Bulls' 6th NBA championship in, I believe it was 1998. And it was produced by ESPN and Netflix. It's on ESPN right now. So when this podcast comes out, it's on ESPN. And I think it comes to Netflix in June or July, they said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're doing it live on ESPN now, and then they'll bring it to Netflix.
Cool.
So we watched the first 2 episodes.
Did we watch this the same night that we watched that cartoon? We were like, let's just put something else on.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Oh.
But anyway, Elizabeth, you really have never watched any basketball in your entire life.
No, that's not true. I didn't watch it on TV. I did go to basketball games, and we talked about this before that like if I had to choose a sport that I would like to watch, it's basketball.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of college games with my dad. I went to like a lot of high school games. I've never been to like an NBA game, and I don't like watching sports on TV.
Yeah.
It's just so boring. I like glaze over. But basketball is like exciting, and I have a lot of fond memories of like going to the rack and like, you know.
Did you like follow the games when you were there? Like, did you pay attention to them?
A little bit, like if something exciting was going on, but I certainly like. So my sister Mary would go for like the players. Like she had her favorite player, and I think his name was Pete Marcotte. He was short. Played for Rutgers, and like we, you know, she like had her favorites and actually like followed the games. But like me, I would like watch a little bit, and then I would like eat some nachos, and like, you know, I wasn't super into sports. But I'm just saying that to say,
Let's see how many times Elizabeth will reference tortilla chips this episode.
The night is still young.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because my experience with you and sports is going to football games when we were younger and you would not watch any of the game, and then going to baseball games when we were a little bit older. High school games.
I was always in the pep band.
You fell for it. I just wanted you to admit that.
Oh, yeah.
Nerd.
Excuse me. In our high school, being in the pep band was very cool.
Yeah, I bet. And then going to baseball games where you would bring a book.
Yeah, I brought a book to a baseball game.
Yeah, and then you would just read a book and almost get hit with foul balls.
I almost got hit with it. That happened one time. It's not that, like, it's just, I don't know. Listen, I know exactly what's going on in baseball. It's just so long and boring. It's very rare that there's like a super exciting thing to watch. I'm just like, I get it. I can look down and I can look up and know what's going on.
Yeah.
Football, I will never understand what's going on. I will never understand what's going on in the field. It's complicated rules to me. I don't understand how the entire country understands this game.
It's not that complicated. You just have to try just a tiny bit, which you never have.
Remember? No, I did. Remember we had like, you drew me a diagram.
Oh, yeah. With the different positions?
With the different positions. And it was hanging on our fridge because one fall I was like, I'm going to get into football this year. And I never did. But I like a fall game, like outside, and like getting hot chocolate and nachos.
Yeah, nachos. Nice. Yeah, the past year at least, I have barely watched any sports at all.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I watched every single NFL game like that you could. So I would watch for 9 hours on Sunday. I would watch Monday nights, Thursday nights. I would watch basketball. I would watch baseball, tennis, some golf.
Yeah, you watched everything.
I watched a lot of fucking sports, as a lot of like people in their mid-20s, guys in their mid-20s do.
Yeah.
man, when I was in college, I would watch every fucking Yankees game. I would get home from work really late, and like even if it was a night game, like a West Coast game, I would stay up from 10 to 1 o'clock in the morning and watch every Yankees game. Well, when I was a kid, so I mean, baseball, basketball, football, I was basic white guy, middle class suburbia. I liked baseball, basketball, and football.
Right.
But when I was in like middle school, it was basketball. In the 90s when the Bulls were really good. I like the Knicks too because that's the local team. But, you know, I grew up watching Michael Jordan and I still think he's the best player of all time. So I wanted to watch this and just watching old clips of him it's just, I don't know. I just get so much enjoyment out of it. Like it just does something. Like to see someone who is, I mean, you can argue LeBron James is the best or maybe some old guys. You can't really compare eras, whatever. But to see someone who is the best ever to do something and to see his drive and competitiveness. And I mean, our friends that listen know what a competitive person I am. I used to be even more competitive than I am now.
Especially when you were really into sports.
Yeah, for sure.
We used to have to ban board games. Remember we had to ban board games?
Yeah. Well, that was partly my fault, partly Kate's fault. But
The game was taboo, by the way, guys.
But just to see someone like at the absolute fucking apex and to be like the supreme competitor is just so cool to me. And I mean, I don't know, you tell me, isn't it like a little bit intoxicating to see the way he handled himself during those games?
No, it is. And I remember, I just like, I had no context because I had no like interest in sports. But I remember like that era. Like I remember Michael Jordan. Like I knew who the fuck like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were and Dennis Rodman. Like that was just like, that was our youth. And so it was cool to watch it. Like, I think I mentioned when we were watching, I'm like, it's funny when they're showing these things. Like, to me, they all look good. And you were like, no, watch him. And, like, it is crazy. Like, I just don't pay that close attention to anything. So, I would have paid that close attention to the skill. Because it's like, well, I can never fucking do that. They're all good. They're in the NBA. Like,
yeah.
But he's, like, pretty incredible. But
just exerting his will over everybody else. I can't wait until we get to the actual finals. Oh man.
Well, it's funny. So I'm super proud of myself that I'm like enjoying this sports show. So I like messaged my siblings. I was like, oh, is anyone else watching this on ESPN? And like, you know, my sister Mary, who's like really into sports, she's like, oh yeah, we're watching it, blah, blah, blah. I told my sister Susan, who's not into sports, but she loves a good documentary. She was like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. So the other night we were on a Zoom call with my family doing trivia. And like at the end, we're just like bullshitting. And I'm like, hey dad, because I'm like, my dad loves sports. He's like you, like he would watch everything. Yeah. I don't know if he watches as much anymore, but he would watch literally everything. I'm like, Dad, are you watching The Last Dance on ESPN? Like, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna be so excited that I'm watching a sports thing and I'm gonna have something to talk to him about, you know? And he goes, no, because I hate the Bulls. Like, don't remember that from growing up. Like, I didn't remember that, but apparently, like, Mary and Peter were all like, oh yeah, Dad fucking hates the Bulls. Like, he hated him.
Your dad hates a lot of teams.
He does. He hates a lot of, like winners.
Yeah.
He's like, I think he roots for.
No, he's like a loyal New York, New Jersey guy.
Yes.
He likes the Giants, the Yankees. He likes Rutgers. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's either a rival of them or happens to be really good in the same league that they're in, he hates.
Yeah. So he hates Penn State.
Yep.
Has always hated Penn State before any scandal. Fucking hates.
Right.
Has always hated Duke. Has always hated Duke. I remember that. He used to call them Puke of Duke. And he used to sing Puke, 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 Puke of Duke, Duke, Duke. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else. Like anything, you know, obviously hates the Patriots, but like who doesn't? Except for Bill gets in trouble when he says he likes watching Tom Brady play.
No, he's not on the Patriots anymore.
Well, I know that.
So, we probably talked about our own sports histories enough.
Yes.
So we watched 2 episodes of the documentary. It's really well done so far. You know, they touch upon the 90s team and what was going on, and then they jump back to Michael Jordan's childhood. They jump back to Scottie Pippen and how he came up, and I don't know, they're building it up nicely.
Yeah, I really like
yeah, there's probably another 2 episodes for us to watch. So, you know, if you were a Jordan/Bulls fan, you should watch this. If you're just a documentary fan in general, you should watch it. Actually, I think if you're not a sports fan and you're a documentary fan, I'm curious if you watch it to see what you think. I want to see if it's like, I mean,
that's me. Like,
yeah.
I like it. I'm going to keep watching it.
Because I'm certainly biased. Like every time they show 90s clips of Michael Jordan, I'm just like, oh man, he's so fucking cool. It's just, I think he was 6'5" or 6'6". He wasn't like a huge guy.
That sounds pretty tall to me, but...
Well, for NBA basketball, to be considered one of the greatest of all time, or the greatest. And he played in the 80s and 90s where it was like a physical sport. Like, much more...
Is it not that way anymore?
No. It's...
Interesting.
I mean, you know, people would get hurt. Like, if you tried to drive the way Michael Jordan drove and you weren't him and you got knocked over or whatever. So they've made it a lot safer, which, you know, sure is for the best.
Yeah.
But then
not
you
as
have
exciting to watch.
Not as exciting to watch. And then you compare like LeBron James, who is, I think he's 6'10" or 6'9", and he's an absolute beast. And I mean that like in the most complimentary way. Like he's just a physical specimen.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan wasn't that. He didn't have that to fall back on. He fell back on his competitiveness and his drive to get better.
So what do you mean, like, comparing the two? Because I don't know. Like...
I mean, if you're 6'5" versus 6'10".
Oh, you're saying like he didn't have that height, like that physical...
Right.
Okay.
He didn't have the height, and he wasn't like as big. Like LeBron James is just like a big,
he's
thick
a big
dude.
guy.
He's muscular. So to be like 6'5" or 6'6" and a smaller framed guy and just like push yourself to dominate everyone every year. And Phil Jackson, great coach. He had Scottie Pippen, best number 2 man ever. Dennis Rodman, all these guys. You know, we're seeing all of them in the documentary. But I mean, they all joke around like, "Oh yeah, we had Jordan."
Yeah,
you know, like we were gonna win because we had Jordan. Like, it's just incredible to me.
That is crazy to see.
And it's tough because, like, football is the ultimate team sport. So, like, the absolute best players in football don't necessarily win as much because you have to have a team around them. Baseball, you can be individually great and it might not help your team because you're one of 9 guys going up to bat.
Yeah.
In basketball, if you are that unbelievably good, you can win.
Yeah.
And so it's, like, easier to...
Well, they were showing something like... They said something that he had, like, there was one game where he had 63 points or something in the game. It's like some NBA games, that's like the final score.
Well, a little bit higher than that, but yeah.
But like 63 points?
Yeah. Yeah. And they have a lot of fun stats like that. Like, oh, you know, in the playoffs, 5 people scored 50 points once and Michael Jordan did it like 10 times or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was something along those lines.
Well, I wonder, and maybe they'll get into this more. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me, like, was he well liked, or was he like a ball hog? Like, I mean, because it seems like, and at least the clips they're showing, it's like, does anyone else even touch the ball?
I think he was well respected, but he was known as like a no nonsense, like he'll get in your face, he'll talk shit to you kind of guy, which a lot of players were,
right.
Both back then and probably now.
Yeah.
But I think he led the Bulls in, like, I think he was second in assists, and assists is when you pass it to somebody and they score.
Right.
So he was
Scottie
like,
Pippen was the first.
Scottie Pippen was first, even though he was underpaid, which we saw in the second episode.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know any of that. Underpaid. Meanwhile, I'll never make what he made in my lifetime.
Right. He only had a contract for $10 million.
Yeah.
All right, we probably talked about...
Yeah, I know. We don't need to, like, they could just watch the documentary, right? Like,
I wasn't expecting to talk about The Last Dance for this long.
It's really good.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. So in summary, Netflix just keeps making shows. There's like 40 shows this month that we couldn't do. They also are bringing on a ton of international stuff. Maybe they have been doing this for a while, but I just noticed it.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing more research for the podcast. So many international shows from like Scandinavia and Spain and India and all these countries.
That's cool.
So we've watched a couple. Maybe we'll check out a few more. Money Heist is a Spanish language show on there that's really popular. But I mean, it's in like season 5 or something. But a lot of people like that. So I would like to check that one out at some point. But yeah, I mean, I just looked at May 2020 to figure out what we're going to do next for the podcast. And there's so many shows coming to Netflix.
This is just a Netflix podcast at this point.
Basically.
Which is good because it's a service we pay for. So we can...
Yeah, we pay $2 a month for it.
So sponsor us.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed us droning on about Michael Jordan for 25 minutes. And we'll...
I hope everyone really likes my take on Michael Jordan.
Was he well liked? Was he a nice guy? So if you have suggestions on shows for us to watch that aren't on Netflix, you can email us at trialbypilot@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at trialbypilot. And please go on to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to this, and leave us a review and tell a friend.
And thank you to the Beats for providing our theme music.
Thanks, Beats.
Bye.
Bye.
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching